qui est une des artistes
So I'm
palestiniennes
delighted to see you here.
dont le
Thank you
travail est très intriguant et très
for being
versatile,
here to
très
listen
riche.
to one of the
Shourouk arrive de Ramallah.
Palestinian
Shourouk a
artists
aussi
who
eu,
has very versatile work. Shuruk
elle
comes
est
from Ramallah.
artiste, mais elle a
She's an
aussi
artist.
été directrice d'un petit centre d'art, un centre culturel à Amman, en Jordanie, pendant longtemps.
Okay.
Elle a aussi beaucoup collaboré
Worked
avec d'autres
extensively with
artistes, dont Ursula Biman, dans la
many
production de textes
artists
et
in
de
producing
journaux
texts
sur le web.
and web journals.
Elle est là pour nous parler de son
She's here to
prochain
talk about
projet,
her forthcoming
qui est un peu en
project.
chantier. La conférence sera en anglais, donc si vous avez besoin
conference is going to be
de casque pour la
in
traduction
English, so
simultanée,
do
n'hésitez
help
pas à les
yourself to a
prendre ici
headset if you
derrière.
need a translation in French.
Bienvenue, Shourouk. Welcome, Shourouk. Thank you so much for coming.
Or does it? Oh, yeah, it's working. Thank you all for coming, especially on such a beautiful sunny day. I'm going to talk to you a bit about work in progress that I'm currently working on, entitled The White Elephant. As always, I feel a little bit ambivalent when it comes to showing a work that I'm still working on, because I'm not so sure exactly how much I should reveal, how much I should keep to myself. But also, of course, as anyone who's working on something, when you're in the process, not everything is still quite resolved. There are some questions. But as Mais was telling me this morning, I would like to also think about this opportunity as a way to also get your feedback, your impressions as well about the video as I make it. So I'm going to show you first a short clip from the work, and then I will talk a little bit about the background and the process of making it, and I will show you also additional clips that I've used for the research. I never told anyone that I knew that Sami was planning to throw that Molotov. I actually never really believed him. I thought he was just kidding. He was just a kid. And I was never able to convince him or unconvince him of anything. I wish I could argue with him now. I would tell him how I was right and he was wrong. Saddam lost the war. His rockets were just firecrackers in the Tel Aviv skies. And your Fatah guys? Your Fatah guys were the first people who signed this stupid Oslo Agreement, just so Arafat can fly his helicopter from Gaza to Ramallah. And I know you won't approve of this, but I'm going out with Nasser now. Since you're dead, I no longer care what you think. When you take something apart, how in the world do you remember how it's supposed to go back together? Sometimes it felt like I was just following Nasser, even though he was the one who was chasing me. But I felt something for him. I felt something for him even when I was 8 and he was 12. I was surprised when he told me. He was drunk and I didn't really understand alcohol. He said it only takes 60 seconds to steal a car. But driving the car back to Ramallah is the complicated part. He insisted he only stole from Israelis, as if that made it a noble cause. So this was just a brief introduction into both the story and the kind of aesthetic that I will be using for this video, which is entitled The White Elephant. In case you don't know what the white elephant refers to, usually people call something a white elephant when it's a corrupt project. When everybody is aware that something fishy is going on. And to be honest with you, I appropriated the title from how the Israelis used to refer to the Tel Aviv bus station that was opened in 1993. The bus station, which became at that time the biggest bus station in the world, was always referred to by the Israeli society as the white elephant because there was so much money and real estate involved, and it took about 10 years for it to open. And so when they finally actually opened the statement, they also flew a white elephant in the air, just, you know, so that everything is clear. So that's where the title comes from. The story in summary, or the premise of the video in summary, is that there is this girl who remains unnamed in the film. She is a Palestinian teenager coming into puberty or adolescence in the 90s. And she's caught between the memory of her friend who died during the 80s in the first Intifada because he attempted to throw a Molotov at the Israeli soldiers, and he was killed as a result. And on the other hand, this coming of age comes with, of course, romance. And she becomes fascinated and romantically linked to an older guy named Nasser, who's a car thief. And so for her, she's kind of caught between the idealism and the nostalgia of a friend who died in the 80s and doesn't witness the Oslo peace process. And then on the other hand, she has a boyfriend who really doesn't care about politics. And although all of his stealing and his theft of cars is actually politically subversive, it's coming for him from a apolitical place. And maybe just to explain a bit about what I mean by it's politically subversive, as a car thief, he steals cars from Israel. And if you got a chance to see the exhibition upstairs, you'd be able to see how Oslo really changed the map of the West Bank, Palestine, Israel, however you want to call it, the landscape. It changed the way we navigate the landscape because the different parts of the West Bank were divided into different categories. Some are referred to as Area A, which is where the Palestinian Authority is the administrator. Some are referred to as Area B, where both the Israeli and the Palestinian Authority administrate that area. However, the largest part is Area C. And this area is controlled by the Israeli military, but it's not policed neither by the Israelis nor by the Palestinians. So as you might imagine, Area C is where all the crime happens. It's where all the drugs, car theft, and other kinds of theft take place, because navigating through that area, you're able to get away with things. And so in that way, Nasser's actions as a car thief is subversive, but he actually doesn't care for the political aspect. For him, this whole thing is just a way to get money. And so the main character is caught between rationalizing this and also thinking about the first Intifada and the idealism of the first Intifada. And I feel like I don't need to explain first Intifada because I have a feeling that everybody knows, so we should be okay. In terms of the visuals of my film, I decided early on that I actually wanted to use Israeli found footage from the internet. So all of the footage that you see in this clip is also things that I just found online through research. Some are done as the people were documenting an important moment in Israeli history or culture. Others I took from actually the Israeli police, because they also photograph and document their handling of Palestinian thieves. And for me, the idea behind using Israeli found footage was my way to kind of appropriate a Palestinian voice within that image. Because the 90s were a time where maybe, unlike now, there was a little bit of exchange between Palestinians and Israelis. Whereas now it's actually very much segregated. But at the same time, I was fascinated by the idea that Israelis were completely oblivious to our existence. And even though we might have registered similar political moments, we weren't actually on the same wavelength when it came to culture. And so I was trying to use my own character's struggle as a teenager to come to age in a time also where she's being confronted with Israeli society, as a way to kind of, how do you say it, bring the two narratives together in a way, but in a way that preserves the Palestinian voice. So as well, as they consider, you might be wondering, well, how do they manage to get into Israel? The equation is quite simple. As Nasser explains to the character, and for now I say she remains nameless, they take on the characteristics of an Israeli. So basically, they camouflage. For him, he puts on a gold necklace, a kippah, tight jeans, and a white t-shirt. And he waits next to an Israeli settlement to take the bus that eventually takes him to Tel Aviv. For her, it becomes a little bit complicated because she needs to first learn Hebrew, but also she needs to try to emulate Israeli girls. And that becomes her goal, because she needs to also be able to pass. So she starts to slowly try to watch Israeli music and Israeli videos. And of course, one of the first people that she comes across is Dana International. I think maybe a lot of you may know her, but for those of you who don't, Dana International is one of the most popular Israeli singers. She's a transgender, and she won the Eurovision in 1998 and actually became world famous. I want to take you on a ride with music, because part of my film also deals with music, and as you know, when you're a teenager, music is very important to your identity. So I want to show you Dana International's first video as a woman in 1993. The clip is called Saida Sultana. And
قولي حبيبتي حاوبة تقولي يا ستي حاوبة تقولي جدا 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 حاوبة تقولي سيدة سلطانة قولي لي 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 أنا اسمي واسمي يسطول ومهبولة كمان جوزي اسمه فريد راح من زمان ضربني من البيت وقولي أنا عيان سألوني كل الناس فاين جوزي فاين أنا مش عارفة راحت على وين one day not long ago I fell for you too easy to let go she was one from your past one of the few you said it didn't last my name is not Saida وأقول إيه وأقول وأقول إيه وأقول ولا يقتدي ولا يقتنع ولا يقتدي ولا يقتنع
Okay, I think you get the picture. But the line that was most important for me in the song, ironically, is "My name is not Saida," and I think that's why I also decided I don't want to have a name for the character in my film. I would like to refer to her as "My name is not Saida." And part of my interest in Dana International in particular was because she embodied the possibility of taking on a different identity, okay? Maybe it's gender and sexuality, but it's the possibility of a man becoming a woman makes it very inspiring for my character to consider that she can come across also as an Israeli woman. And she can study some of Dana International's mannerism, her expression of femininity. And so at the time, for example, tight jeans were very much in style. It was important for Israeli girls you cut off your shirt so that part of your cleavage is showing and your bra is showing. These were all indications that made a difference between how you could view a Palestinian woman as opposed to an Israeli woman. It's really based on the clothing and the styling. Again, also, Israeli girls were known to keep their hairs curly. Palestinian girls were making their hair straight. So when she would camouflage herself to go into Israel, she would actually embrace her curls, maybe add a few blonde streaks. And the other important part about Dana International is that actually Dana is of Yemeni origin. And this particular song, although it became very popular in Israel and put Dana International on the map, it also became popular in Jordan and other Arab countries. It combines both elements of Western pop, but also Arabic pop. And she sings most of the song in very bad Arabic. I don't understand it. So don't worry about understanding it yourself. Even the English doesn't make so much sense. But I was fascinated with that possibility of an Israeli who could come from Arab origins, well, or if you want to say from the Yemen, from Maghreb, that could also be an Israeli. And so it gave my character a chance to camouflage well as they tried to enter into Israel. I will show you another clip of Dana International. Of course, when you begin researching something, sometimes you find yourself obsessed by some characters. So I'm imposing my own obsession on you.
Did you ever think you'd live to see the day when a transsexual would win the Eurovision Song Contest? Well, she did, and she's here, and she's gorgeous. Would you welcome, please, Dana International? How are you? You're welcome. Good to see you. Welcome. Oh, Prue, come and sit down. Come and sit down and make yourself welcome.
Hello.
Are you enjoying the whole bit?
Yes, of course I am.
Absolutely. Now, this is the third country you visited today, somebody told me. Is that true? You missed 2 planes?
Yeah.
What countries were you in and why did you miss aircraft?
Netherlands and England, and I missed the plane to Ireland.
It's Ireland you're in. It's Ireland you're in. Yeah. We were told that you especially wanted to come to Ireland because to you it's the home of the Eurovision. Not so. Yeah?
You're the #1 country that hosts the most Eurovision concerts than any other country, so you deserve respect.
So it meant something to you.
And I
I have to say that it's not just that. I want also to congratulate Ireland for the peace agreement, and I hope in Israel we'll have the same sort of peace agreement with all our neighbors, and you should be clapping to yourself.
It looks like it. Looks like it. Did Netanyahu come to greet you at the airport? No?
No, Netanyahu was meeting Arafat in New York City. You know, they talk and talk and talk and they do nothing. But
that sounds kind of familiar, right enough. Yes, yes. Well, not always.
But I was welcomed in the Israeli Knesset, and I was invited by the Ministry of Tourism to receive a gift, and by the Ministry of Education, and they treat me with lots of honor, so it's enough. And also the head advisor of Bibi Netanyahu called me, and he congratulated me, and he said that Bibi is very sorry, but he's in the States, so next time he will congratulate me.
Yeah, we were told here, there were reports that the very, very Orthodox Jewish people are against you, but I presume they're a minority, and it's...
They are a minority, but they are a very powerful minority, because they're in the coalition and they have lots of money and power, and I can stand against them.
Yes, but the rest of Israel, they gave you a huge welcome. Did they not? Yes,
they are very nice, they love me, and I was sent to represent the Israeli state, not the Jewish state or something like that, and most of the Israelis are pleased with me, and I gave them #1, so...
Yes, and they were cheering in the streets, were they, and banners and flags and all of that sort of thing.
It was a huge celebration. It was the biggest celebration ever was in Israel. It was even bigger than the 50 years anniversary of independence. So I'm very happy.
Can the Orthodox people do you any harm?
Yeah. So she was quite important, as you can imagine. And even for Palestinians, they were very much aware of Dana International and the fact that she was winning the Eurovision. And there's two things that attracted me to this clip. On one level, also, Dana International describing the peace process as a lot of talk and no action is something that also resonates to the Palestinian side. That was the feeling. It was a mutual feeling. It was still maybe the place of hope, the 90s, I mean, were a place of hope that maybe Oslo somehow will create something that makes sense. However, by 2000, it was very clear that that was not the case. And the other reason it resonated with me is because I think it is quite important for the Israelis to win the Eurovision. I think that was the first time that they won. I think that it gave them kind of an acknowledgement on a public level on Europe as a state. And on the Palestinian side, people were wondering, well, why can't Palestine also be part of the Eurovision if we're literally neighbors? But this is to say that part of my film is dealing with popular culture in Israel, but also underground culture. So the story of my film, when they enter into the Israeli territories, they also become curious about the party scene in Tel Aviv. And the party scene in Tel Aviv in the 90s took off as well because of rave music. And I'm just going to show you another clip from a BBC documentary, just so that I can give you an idea, both in sound and image, of what that culture looked like during that time. Just 1 second.
But here in Tel Aviv, there's just one magazine that caters for the scene. That magazine is Extra. If it goes on out there, it goes down in here.
Extra magazine is Tel Aviv's clubbing Bible, best described as the bastard child of Mix Mag and Hello magazine.
Israel is a country which loves its trance, and some of the most passionate trance lovers can be found in the most unlikely places. The Israeli army.
Every Israeli enters the army at 18. Boys join for a minimum of 3 years and girls for 21 months. At an age where young people around the world are discovering clubs and dance culture, it's perhaps no surprise that many soldiers have a passion for dance music. But what is surprising is that soldiers love trance.
I love trance music every day, every week especially. I'm going to clubs and I hear it and it's very, very nice.
Trance music makes me high.
It's the kind of music today that makes the world go around.
God is a DJ.
Shai Farhi is coming to the end of his 3-year service. He works at a supply base 30 minutes from Tel Aviv.
Trance music is so popular with soldiers because right now we're in a system. As you know, it's a 3-year system. And sometimes it's a little bit stressful, sometimes it's a little bit hard. So when you finish, a long, hard week in the army, so you go out on the weekend, you have a trance party. This is the wall of flyers. Almost every party you see on this wall, I went there.
Like all non-combat soldiers in Israel, Shai works 9 to 5. He lives at home where he also makes trance music with his friend Gil.
When I was a soldier, I was a combat soldier, and in my time we heard the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, that kind of music. Today it's another generation, another music. To tell the truth, I don't know much about this music. I know that it's playing trance and ambient trance.
Tonight, Shai and Gil are heading for a trance party. But meanwhile, on the other side of town, the weekly dance music show Discotheque is kicking off on Army Radio.
קלאסיקות של הטראנס, 96, 97, מנונונים.
Hola! The Discotheque is the only national show on national radio in Israel that plays electronic music.
Most of the commanders here in the army station didn't want it that much because they say trance music, it brings drugs and everything. It's really, really popular because most of the soldiers that they are in the middle of guarding, when they are in Lebanon or something like this, we have like a lot of phone calls that leaving us a message that, wow, we want to say that these 2 hours was really fabulous and we had a great time with the show and we want more of it, and it really, really was a good show.
Shai and Gil arrive at the trance party and are soon getting sweaty.
Trance music is really, really popular with soldiers because it does, the beat is much higher, and it's like if you want to go and crazy, this is the way to come and get crazy.
After a hard week in the army, this is like where soldiers like, to unwind, and dance and stuff like that.
It's very liberating music. You can get to the party and dance and liberate, get to trance.
You're looking for a break, so you come here, you forget from everything, from the army, from your commanders, and party on.
Party on, boys.
The current vibe in Tel Aviv, I think, is really powerful because I think the pressure they're under makes them party hard.
People want to party out there. They're full on. They really want to go on until they drop.
You got the sea, you got the sand, you got the sun. It's just perfect, really.
The things I've enjoyed about Tel Aviv, playing there, it boils down to the people, the atmosphere, the effort people make for the partying out there.
Fanatical clubbers. They love their music. Good on you.
So you get a bit of what it sounds and feels like. So beyond just the teenage element of the trance scene, I was interested, the rave trance movement in Israel, I was interested in how the music was related actually to the military, how it was used as a means of escape and rebellion. And actually, throughout the 90s, a lot of these rave parties would be raided by police because of its association with drugs, but also because people, it's almost kind of like, it's almost like Woodstock in the US in the 60s. not now. But you would go to these parties, sometimes they would be outside, sometimes they would be inside with lots of light. But the whole idea is that you could completely become animalistic, you could let go, you don't care about anything. And so all that pumped up anger that you have from being an Israeli soldier, either drafted to go to Lebanon or in the West Bank, you come and you release all that anger in the party. And to me, actually, trance sounds very militant as well. Just it's like thumping noise that is constant. And so I was also interested in terms as a filmmaker or a storyteller. I wanted my characters to aim to go to Tel Aviv, aim to penetrate these party scenes. But unlike their Israeli counterparts, or very much like their Israeli counterparts, they're also trying to escape something. They're also trying to escape themselves. They are trying to break the rules. And so they arrive at the same place for completely different reasons and also perceiving the situation very differently. So I hope I was able to give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm working on and what where I'm heading. I guess now we can open it to questions.
Shuru is here for your questions. Perhaps
or comments as well.
Or comments. Perhaps I will begin. I mean, it's of course fascinating, and what you're doing, I find it amazing that you're practically rewriting a history, a kind of history, or proposing to write a kind of history of Israeli society using the alibi of these two Palestinian characters. I'm really curious about the genesis of what brought you. You're not a teenager. I don't know if you know car thieves. What brought you to this world, to this underworld?
So I guess the question is, it autobiographical or not?
Or how did you come into this story?
Okay. Okay. I guess I'm on the record and being photographed and on camera and in front of a lot of people. But yes, I will admit that I did come across a few car thieves when I was a teenager. And then after that, actually, I mean, I met them kind of casually. And they always stuck in my mind because of that subversion. And apolitical subversion coming from an apolitical position, I found very interesting. So later on, as an adult, I became curious. So I started to look for them and see if anybody would be willing to talk to me on record. Of course, I wasn't able to meet anybody directly. It was always mediated through a number of people, so I would never have direct contact. But I also interviewed a lot of other women who either married car thieves or dated car thieves. And I was interested in also their perspective as well. And that's really how I came into it. And I think I'm also very fascinated with stories of coming of age, because that is the time when things are confusing, but usually through the journey of the characters, something about life is crystallized. And I find that interesting. And setting them up, of course, in the 90s was in itself, for me at least, a no-brainer, because I experienced being a teenager in the 90s. And it was very confusing because things have shifted and things were changing, but you didn't understand them completely. And so I like that kind of confusion to throw in my characters in.
One of the unwritten histories of South Lebanon, when Israel was occupying a big part of South Lebanon between 78 and 88 or 86, and then they started withdrawing casually. But now when I meet men my age, my generation, so people who were 16 years old in 86 and 85, a lot of them confessed to me that the first time they went to a nightclub was in Tel Aviv. And the first time they danced or kissed a girl, it was in Israel.
Or had sex, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's a completely repressed story of South Lebanon.
Hi, Shuru. Thank you. It actually reminds me of the time when we were teenaging in Jordan, and we didn't have satellite at the time, and when you wanted to see any sexual scene, or you kind of opened to Israeli TV, but anyways, your characters give me this feeling that there's a party outside and you're grounded at home and your parents don't allow you to go out. Yes. And you're missing the party. But I'm actually curious to know why the visual footage you have is from the other side. And I became more, the choice of the found footage from Israel makes me curious about your characters and the visual world which they come from. You have them present in a voice, but visually their world is not present, and I'm wondering what are you thinking and why, and maybe just take to discuss why that image there only, and where were they coming from?
I think I haven't decided yet.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. Okay. It's adolescence is a transitional time, and your film starts Oslo, and it's very time specific, looking back, and specifically adolescence. You feel there's a start and end to it. Do your characters kind of reach the end of their adolescence, or do they stay in that time? There's a lot of movement in that age time, let's say.
No, they remain teenagers, actually. I wanted to keep them within that period because I actually don't want them to look back on that time. I want them to kind of be in that time. And I want even the realizations that I come to as teenagers to be very close to how you realize things when you are a teenager. I don't want it to become more than that, if that makes sense. Now, in terms of your other question,
the brand that Israel was trying to create, which they use. I mean, if you look at the gay parade they have today, it's basically those two things.
Yes.
And over time, the brand of Israel used that to attract the world to it, even though they were against the singer.
Dana International.
Dana, yeah. I mean, the meaning of the brand has changed over time. So I'm looking at something in history. Meanwhile, today, the way we deal with those metaphors are totally different for the world, You would never find today, the way the world looks today at the Israeli, the IDF, it's very different than that report.
Yeah, but I think that's why it's interesting to go back to that moment, to see where its genesis came from, where this idea of Israel being the hedonistic haven of the Middle East, the place of freedom, the place where you can explore your desires, where you can be totally open about your sexuality. I mean, I think that is the 90s was the genesis of that branding of Israel. And so, yes, we are going back to it. Of course, now things have changed. But I'm hoping that through the film that I can just make you realize where it started from. But in terms of your question about why that kind of footage, I'm still working on the bigger parts of the film, and I haven't shown you everything. I'm still in that decision-making process of what kind of footage from the Palestinian side I want to show. For example, I'm really interested in the yards, actually, where, like in Area C, where they dismantle the cars, because I'm interested in that symbol of the car becoming a skeleton. And thinking about how when you take something apart like that, when you take the car apart, it also becomes something else, because then these parts become part of other cars. So I'm interested in that kind of image, that graveyard of cars, and they are quite, there's quite a lot of them when you travel in the West Bank and areas C. So for example, that's something that I think about filming or using that image. I'm also interested in using some images of more driving within the West Bank parts. But I think in certain instances, you can't really tell whether it's an Israeli being the one behind the camera, or is it a Palestinian? Is it the perspective of the police, or is it the perspective of those who are escaping the police? So I would like to problematize that gaze further. And then when I did think about reenactments of certain of the characters in some way, or an embodiment of the character through image rather than sound, I still feel like I don't want to see the face. I want to see the background, the body, but not completely the face, or maybe details of the body, but not the face completely. I hope that answers the question.
You just answered my question in your last part of the answer, the way I was on my way to grab the microphone. But if you could just like flesh out that last part of your answer, because in the way you presented the synopsis of the film, and then in the short video that you showed us, it seemed like a total imbalance between the movement between the occupied territories to Tel Aviv, and then the car making its way, the stolen car making its way back to the West Bank. And I was very interested in what happens to the car in the West Bank, because in the video you showed the assembly line of making cars, like bringing different parts together and creating a new thing, which somehow sort of resonates with what Dana International is, sort of the body as an assembly line of different gendered identities being put together. And on the other hand, the actual car, the physical car that makes its way to the West Bank, where it's disassembled and then finds new life through different sort of shards and splinters of the broken whole, which somehow reflects what's happening in the West Bank. Like the assemblage of Tel Aviv and then the disassembly of the Palestinian identity in the West Bank. So I was wondering if this is the equilibrium between the two. Is this something that is going to be fleshed out in the movie itself afterwards? My other question, I think, this is like a very personal kind of take on things. The title that you gave the whole project is in itself a white elephant. I'm not sure this is a helpful title for a prospective project, because you seem to be confining yourself to serve the title, like to do whatever it takes to justify calling the film a white elephant. And this might be counterproductive, in the sense that it really doesn't make any sense now, after we've seen everything, that image of the Central Bus Station in Tel Aviv being borrowed to and imposed on the new thing that you are assembling together. So my personal suggestion would be get rid of the title.
Thank you. I was thinking about that myself, but I think you're totally right. I think when I named it the white elephant, I was still obsessing about that image of the elephant flying with the pigeon. I just completely fell in love with it sculpturally. And I was very much fixated on making a statement towards Oslo being a white elephant. So, but I totally understand. I think I agree with you that it probably works better with a different title. With regards to what you said in the beginning, you said it so eloquently. You got exactly what I'm trying to say. So I'm glad we have it recorded. But it's exactly what I'm trying to do. You nailed it. Absolutely. So I feel really good that I communicated myself well. But yes, to answer your question, yes, I do want to flesh these things out further, definitely. The question of how is a delicate one, something that I'm still experimenting with the footage, with thinking about the narrative, playing with these elements, considering shooting certain scenes, restaging some abstraction of some scenes. Yeah, but also I think for anybody who works with video, as you can imagine, it's actually quite hard to construct a narrative out of very dispersed and very different kinds of material. And so sometimes I find myself trying to say so much, like within my editing process, and then I step away and try to consider, well, how would this work, you know, in a flow where I'm not hammering my viewer. So it's that also, that balance and consideration.
Shuru, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We just need to make space for
Yes.
Aysam.
Yeah.
Today is like a sabotage day. We started with Eyal Sivan, then the Shuru, the great saboteur, and now another saboteur who comes to us with images and stories.